I'm Mark Andreas, and we're going to be learning the first half about wolverines and their natural habitats, and then the second half we're going to be learning to dance. So that's what you all came here for, right? Waltzing with Wolverines is the name of my new book about my experience working at a wilderness therapy program for teens. So I worked 2 years in this program. How many of you work with teens? And how many, for those of you who work with teens, how many is it in a therapeutic context? And how many of you have teenagers? All right. And how many of you used to be teenagers? Oh. Okay, great. How many of you are teenagers? Oh, awesome. My job wasn't official therapist, it was to be a field instructor, which meant that I was in charge, along with a co-leader, of a whole group of 8 teens. I would be with them 24/7 for 3 weeks at a time. We'd go off backpacking into the Rocky Mountain wilderness, and my job was to, first and foremost, keep them safe, keep them from getting eaten by bears, attempt to keep them from running away. They were all sent by their parents, so most of them were there against their will. They didn't want to be there. So there was a wide range of behaviors, resistance and defiance and frustration and anger and all kinds of stuff, both with me, with themselves, in the group. Every new expedition that I went out on, I had no idea what kind of crazy new adventure would unfold. I like to joke that it was nice going in and having our plan, because I knew that at least that wouldn't happen. There was one night when I was out on shift and I was going around giving out the medications to the students who were on medications, and I came to one student's tent. I unzipped his tent after asking, and I was getting ready to give his meds, and he was searching around inside his tent frantically, looking around, like pulling up his sleeping bag and his pad, and just like, he's like, I can't, it's not anywhere, I can't find it. And I'm like, Roger, what are you looking for? And he's like, my cross, I can't find my cross anywhere. And then in front of my eyes, he reaches down onto the bottom of his tent and picks up nothing and holds it up. And I could almost see the cross. And then he puts it on his head, and he's like, oh. Actually, he was trying to get it on his head, but it was difficult because it wasn't actually there. And so I quickly discovered that he was having some sort of experience on some other drugs that I had not yet given him. And I wasn't sure where he had gotten them. So we called the 911, and I went down to the hospital with him, and they discovered that it was likely an OD on ibuprofen. I had no idea you could OD on ibuprofen, but apparently you can. And they said he just needs to wait it out and he'll be fine. And so after that night, we went back from Denver, went back up into the mountains, and got him back into his tent. I went to sleep. It was like 5 a.m. Then I got woken up at 6 a.m. and my co-instructor's saying that one of the other students is wandering around barefoot, cutting his feet in one of the rivers, sort of dazed and confused. And apparently he had the other half of the bottle of ibuprofen. It had kicked in a little bit later for him. Another time we woke up and discovered 2 kids missing. And we went down, found out that the program pickup truck had been hijacked. These 2 kids had snuck out in the middle of the night. They broke into one of the 16-passenger vans and scrounged around in there and found my backpack that had my Subaru key in it. My Subaru was nowhere nearby, but they thought that maybe it worked, that maybe it was the pickup truck key, and it happened to work. So they took the pickup truck into town, and the first thing you want to do when escaping a wilderness therapy program is to get some new hoodies, and like this one that I have here, and some new Billabong hats and stuff like that. So they broke into a ski shop, got themselves some new hoodies and hats, and then drove the wrong way down a one-way street, and a police car was coming the other direction. So that ended their escapade. Another time we had a student who wanted to get himself discharged, and so he peed in a water bottle and started drinking it. Then he pooped into his hand and started chasing the other students and staff around. So I was called in from the other group. Thankfully, it wasn't my group. When I got there, he was brandishing some tent stakes and attempting to stab or threatening to stab us with these tent stakes. So these are just a few of the more extreme examples. This wasn't like what every student did, but it gives you some sense of some of the wide range of behaviors. So students would, defy me, they would defy each other, they would get in conflicts, we had group conflicts, they would threaten to commit suicide or hurt others or myself, or just refuse to do anything that I asked. So I worked for 2 years as a field instructor before I decided to move on to my private practice. And when I did, my boss shook my hand and he thanked me. He said, "I'm gonna really miss you. Like when you were out on shift, I knew that whatever kind of crazy shit went down, you would take care of it. I slept well and I'm really gonna miss you." And then he said something that surprised me that I didn't realize. He said, "When I first hired you, I thought you wouldn't last beyond your first expedition." He said, "I thought that the kids would eat you up." And I was, "Oh, really? Interesting." He said, "Yeah, you were just so kind and innocent. I thought they would, I didn't think you would last past your first expedition." So a lot of today is going to be about how that was possible for me to still be kind and innocent in a sense, and yet still be effective as well. One of the foundational things that I learned in this experience that for me was the underlying number one thing that allowed me to be successful as a leader for so many years with so many different things that came up. And this was an experience that happened to me on my second expedition. We'd finished our backpacking, our hiking. The kids had set up their tents in this meadow where we were camping. Two of them started working on their making dinner for the group. The rest of the group was doing their journal assignments. Well, at least that's what I wanted them to be doing. That was the daily practice, was to do journal assignments, and they would turn those into their therapists at the end of the day. So I told them, "It's time to do your journal assignments," and most of the kids did. And one of the students said, "I'm not going to do mine." And I think, uh-oh. So I was very clever, and I said, "Well, you can have dinner as soon as you do your assignment. That'll take care of that." And she said, "Well, fine, I won't eat dinner." And I go, uh-oh, power control battle. And here I am, a new leader, and I'm feeling like, oh no, like this may seem like kind of a small issue, but I can't let her get the best of me here. I can't let her win this, Then what other kind of challenges might I start getting? The whole group, it could be mutiny. So I felt threatened. Rule number 1 was don't get into a power control battle. Rule number 2 was if you do get into a power control battle, win it. That's what we were taught as leaders. So I thought, well, I screwed up rule number 1. Here I am in a power control battle, so I'm going to win this. So I said, well, if you don't do your assignment, I'm going to take away one of your overnights. Now, what is an overnight? This was our main point of leverage as leaders. The students, if they did well on the expedition and followed through with all our expectations, then they got to earn time with their families. At the end of the expedition, their families would fly in, and they got to shower in the hotel and not be camped in the wilderness. They got to listen to music, have candy, and go to restaurants and stuff like that. So these overnights, even if there was a lot of conflict with their parents, these kids very much valued their overnights. So I said, don't do your assignment, I'll take away your overnight. That'll do it. It didn't work. She said, fine, take away my overnight. And I'm like, oh, crap. What do I do now? So I said, well, if you don't do your assignment, I'm going to take away all of your overnights. And that was all I had. So I walked away, and I felt really bad about it. I was like, man, I just blew that totally out of proportion. And I was just praying that she would do that stupid assignment so I wouldn't have to take away all her overnights, because that felt very unfair to me. I wasn't in this job to coerce kids into following my will. I didn't get into this because I wanted to see how many kids I could control or impose my authority over. So it felt really bad to me, and it really got me thinking, even though it was kind of a small thing. Thankfully for me, she did the journal assignment, so she let me off the hook. Over my next off shift, I was thinking about this. How can I don't want to win power control battles that I get into. What's a better solution here? Because I'm not in this to, as I said, to assert my authority on these kids. I'm here to support them and help them and give them more tools. So then when I came back on my next shift, something that my boss said to me got me thinking even more. he was updating me on the new group I was going to take over, which was this group of 8 kids. And he said, Mark, this group is doing great. They think their leaders are gods. And that kind of bothered me a little bit too. On the one hand, Nick's obviously, the group's safe, so Nick's happy in that sense. He doesn't have to worry about them, being out of control and doing something that could be to somebody's physical harm. But at the same time, what those leaders were doing really was their strategy of leadership was to get into power control battles and win them. And they were very effective at that. And in a certain sense, it sort of worked in the sense that they were effective leaders. They were being followed by this group of kids. But what was the larger goal here in this program? Did we want to teach kids to just follow the smartest and strongest leader wherever they happen to be leading? Or did we want to teach these kids to think for themselves and make their own choices? And this is really kind of their last phase to learn that before going into adulthood. Pretty soon they're going to be making their own choices, whether that's just to follow the strongest and smartest person or to think more for themselves and make choices that are right for them. So I wanted to do the second way. I wanted to avoid actually ever having to get into a power control battle, ever. So I decided that I was never going to get into another power control battle with a student ever again. That was my goal, at least. And it worked for me. So in the future, in situations when a student would say something like, I'm not going to do that journal assignment, often, I learned that any defiance, any opposition is actually just a sign that there's some need there that's not being met. And so what a great opportunity to find out what that is and learn about that. So instead of taking that as an affront to my authority, after all, the whole reason I'm here is to support these kids, to be with these kids. So I realized I'm on the side of the kid. I'm never not on the side of the kid. And if I don't ever put myself in opposition to them, then I'm never going to get into a power control battle with them. So, you don't want to do the assignment? Oh, well, what do you need that will make that you'll feel good about doing the assignment? Often it would be something as simple as like, I haven't filtered my water yet. Oh, awesome. Great. Thanks for letting me know. Go filter your water and then you can do the assignment. Or my tent, I set it up on this big rock. I want to move it over here somewhere. Other times it would simply be, they'd have something emotional going on that they just wanted to talk about. And they didn't even quite realize it themselves until I asked them, what's going on? Oh man, I'm homesick. Just talking to me about it a little bit, and then they're ready to do the assignment. Other times I'd take a different approach. They'd say, man, I don't want to do this fucking assignment. And I'd get even more angry with them. I'd say, I don't want to do this fucking program. This whole thing is shit. And I'd take off my hat and throw it on the ground, pick up rocks and throw them, and just a whole temper tantrum. And, they'd be kind of like, whoa, this guy's out of control. And then I'd just walk away or something, and they could do the assignment or not or whatever. Other times they'd be whining and saying, do we have to do the assignment? And I'd say, have to do the assignment? No, you get to do this assignment. This is an honor. This is a privilege, and your words shall be written down and recorded and passed on through the generations. Generations of Monarch students will read the words of Robert and know that he was good. So think carefully about that journal assignment. So there were lots of ways of staying with them, having fun, having humor, but staying on their side and never being in opposition to them. Of course, still sometimes the students would still refuse. No, I'm not going to do the assignment. Okay, that's actually fine. And I would say, I certainly wouldn't want to, I'm not in this job to make you do anything. And first of all, I can't. And second of all, even if I could, I wouldn't want to, because I don't want you to be doing anything that you don't want to be doing yourself. So, I'm here to support you and doing what's right for you and that kind of thing. Again, getting back to meeting the needs. And, if you don't want to do the assignment, that's fine. You can work it out with your therapist. And I'm just really here to support you in getting what you want and your ultimate goals of I know you don't want to be in this program. I know you want to get back home and figure things out with your parents and get your life on track for your own goals. So that way, kids could refuse and did refuse to do things all of the time, but it no longer was a reflection of me as a leader, because I never put myself in that position of asking for something that I didn't actually have control over. So I changed their rule. I slightly changed it to never get into a power control battle, but if you do get into a power control battle, just get back out of it again.
For loads more stories and 48 principles for staying out of power control battles, click the book cover to find Waltzing with Wolverines on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback.